Are you okay if we record?
Uh, yeah, sure.
Okay. What's your name?
Eric.
Eric? Eric?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm David. Good to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Quaid.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I lost my pen.
Uh-oh. I have more.
You have a pen?
Yeah, there's some in that bag, or there should be. If not, I can find one for you.
Yeah, here it is.
Find one?
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey, Eric. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, there it is. What's something that you would say that you believe that maybe other people would like disagree with?
Um,
You can take a second to think about it.
Probably.
Any ideas? Something about maybe the universe as a whole. Sometimes that can get you to think of something.
Um, people have sometimes said we're more segregated now than we were in the past.
Is that what you would say?
10 years ago, maybe not, but
Okay.
um, I took a class my senior year in high school where it did say we were more segregated now than we were back in the 1900s.
Okay.
I really don't know how I felt about that, but I just thought that was interesting because I didn't think that would be something somebody would say
What was the
now.
class?
It was African American history.
Gotcha. So after you took that class, how confident did you become that that was true? Let's say on a scale of let's say negative 100 means you don't believe it at all, and 100% means you absolutely believe it, no question. How confident would you say that you are?
As in believing that,
Yeah.
I'd say I'd say maybe 10, maybe like half of that or a little bit more.
Okay, half, like 50%? Okay. 50%? Okay. Um, so another question I have would be, was segregation defined in the classroom in any particular way? What does it mean to be segregated?
Well, just in terms of race being put with your own race, not being united, not being able to share feelings with the rest of the world. That's really what I would call that, just segregated. And then if you do end up meeting, you have to disagree just because you don't know what those other people were thinking.
Yeah,
You didn't have time to sit and talk with them and try to make an agreement.
gotcha.
So now it's all this tension because it's almost like you have to disagree with them now because you were never able to find that agreement.
Got you. So this isn't necessarily by law. This is just kind of the behavior of individuals or groups. Okay. Did you talk about maybe? Well, I guess let's first talk about is there anything that you could learn hypothetically that would increase your confidence that this is true, and maybe what might that be?
Well, obviously just I don't know, reading or watching the news,
Okay.
things that go on in our country. I mean, this world too. Um, some of some of the violence that's going on could researching that a little bit more could get me closer to actually believing that.
Got you. So if you were like doing research and you found out maybe there was more violence among groups, or just things happening in the country where it seems like groups of people are becoming more isolated.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. This was African American studies, so I'm assuming it was segregation based on race, or was the instructor just talking about all?
Well, that really wasn't what the class was about.
Right, right.
It's just something my teacher would bring up
Okay,
every now and then if we were talking about something specific. That's really wasn't that's really not what the class was about.
right.
She would just bring it up at certain times, and
Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm wondering, but when she did bring it up, was she talking about segregation between races, or was she talking about like segregation, say for instance, between like political ideologies, or was she basically talking about racial segregation or some other type?
racial
Racial.
segregation.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Okay. Um, is there anything that could decrease your confidence that this was true?
Well, so when I said 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said that.
Oh,
I
okay.
meant, obviously, what's going on now wasn't happening 10 years ago, but also at that time, that's when I was just doing research on the 1900s, and
Yeah.
I was like, I don't recall hearing of any of that happening right now.
Okay.
So if I went back and read more about that and didn't focus on what's happening now,
Gotcha.
maybe that would decrease my thoughts, but other than that, probably not, just because of everything that's going on right now.
Gotcha. So maybe if things were more like they were 10 years ago, or just what you were researching was more in line with what you were
Hmm.
researching 10 years ago. Okay. Okay, great. Um, and then so what are some of the things? What are some of the things that maybe your teacher brought up, or things that you know that give you this confidence that we're more segregated now than we were in the past?
Um, Obviously, well, the main thing is just the violence that's going on in really in the world.
Okay.
Obviously, Russia, Ukraine, then Israel. That's like how segregated we are right now.
Okay.
There's all this tension going on.
Israel. Okay, Israel and Palestine.
And then obviously the politics doing, to me, politics are really not doing that much to help
To help.
stop.
Okay. All right.
I
So,
mean,
sorry. Go ahead.
why do you have to start a meeting to start a bomb threat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there, nothing that, nothing about that's gonna help anything.
Okay. So this idea of racial segregation seems to, we're talking about Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine. Um, are there other things? I'm just curious. Are there maybe even specific examples that you could cite that you can think of? I know this is kind of on the spot, but you can take as much time as you want.
Um, well, I feel like, to this day, there's still businesses that might be segregated.
Okay. Segregated businesses. Is this in the U.S.?
Mostly in the U.S.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I should have asked you, was
Hmm.
you mentioned Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. Was there any discussion of here in America?
Hmm.
Okay, so that would be one, is like business segregation. Were there other things that were discussed, or other things maybe you learned?
Well, obviously, there's there's the world, and then we talked about like black communities.
Okay.
Um, that were built, just communities, and then talking about how that was different from the rest of the world, not necessarily in a bad way, but just like how it was different. So that's not. So when I talk about segregation, that's that's really not a bad difference.
Oh,
Kind of
okay.
like the other things,
Oh, okay.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I do know. I think I know what you mean. Yeah, it's like segregation, but it's people aren't necessarily unhappier.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Hmm.
I wasn't thinking of it that way, so that's different. So your teacher was saying we're more segregated, but your teacher wasn't necessarily saying that that was like always a bad thing or anything like that. Just that we are more segregated. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because you were talking about black communities. So is the idea
Well, I
what's the
mean,
idea behind that?
yeah, that is bad. We don't want to be segregated, but just in that situation, just black communities, that people didn't think of it bad that way. It's just like no one was unhappy in that case, but
Yeah.
segregation itself, like we don't want that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, so now I'm trying to think if there's maybe something else where some of these things are going on, but I guess, are there examples of these things happening in the past too? Like where, so we're talking about, when you say the 1900s, you're talking about early or later 1900s, do you know?
Probably mid.
Mid? Okay. And then so, I'm wondering, that's when like World War II was, so like Germany was kind of in full swing then. So, that was sort of going on, and that was a strong example of segregation. So I guess the question is like I have is how do we measure segregation? Is there a way for us to measure segregation?
Segregation.
Yeah. I guess my question kind of is, because if we can't think of a way, then how do we know that it's more or less from now or in the past if we can't measure it?
Well, I mean, we would know just based on. Well, if I'm just talking about the 1900s, then measuring that there was probably say this.
Yeah, because it seems like there's an intuition here or a feeling that we have about it. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can know for certain that it is, or if it's one of those things that we just kind of like we go with our gut on.
Mm-hmm. And that could be case too, because again, I'm not 100% sure that that's true,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's def that's definitely it could be my teacher could have known it or could have just like said it with her gut, like
yeah,
just based on what's happening. Not she didn't even have to measure the amount of segregation
yeah,
that there was in the 1900s compared to now. She could have just said it from her gut because it's only 2024.
yeah,
I'm talking about the 1960s.
yeah,
We haven't even made it to this century with that yet.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, and I'm wondering like, I don't want to make assumptions, but I wonder if maybe they lived through that era, and that's just one of those things that you kind of have to
mhm,
live through the eras to kind of get a sense for.
mhm.
So yeah, I guess I'm. So before you took that class, how confident were you? If you had to put a number on it.
Yeah, but before I took that class, I would have said that there was more racism back in the 1900s than there is now.
Okay.
Despite what all's going on, I don't want to say that to someone and then they forget about what's going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I still want what's going on right now to be recognized and solved, but
Yeah.
just measuring the time, I would still say.
So in the past, you would have been maybe on the opposite side. You would have been like a negative 50% or something like that. Okay. But there was nothing. It was just kind of. Was this kind of like the authority of your teacher that made you convinced, or was your teacher giving you specific examples? Maybe you can't recall them now,
Yeah, I
or
probably can't recall them now,
okay,
but
okay, gotcha. Yeah, 'cause I'm wondering if it's just something she said that stuck with you, or if she was giving facts and you just maybe don't remember what the facts are.
well, I don't remember what the facts are, but they did stick with me because that's something that
Yeah.
I've lived my whole life not believing.
Yeah.
So every time she would say that, it would stick with me in a way because I'm like, I never heard anyone think or say that.
Okay.
So yeah, it would stick with me because I lived my whole life not thinking about that, but
Awesome. I just have one more question, if you don't mind.
yeah, no problem.
So let's say we have another person here,
Mhm.
and they say that they're 50%. They're actually, maybe it's the former you. The former you is certain that segregation is not worse now than it was in the past. In fact, it was worse in the past than it is now. And you ask them why, and they say, well, I had a teacher, and a teacher was telling me that it was true,
Mhm.
right? And would you say that they're kind of justified in being 50% confident because of that?
Well, if I hadn't taken that class and somebody right here would have said that,
Yeah.
I probably would have went along with that just
Okay.
because I would have known what I've already known, and so
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's all the questions I have. I don't know if David wants to jump in at all. I want to respect your time too. Do you have to jet or anything, or?
Probably have to do a little studying, but
Okay. All right. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
no problem.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Eric, right? Yeah. Good to meet you. Yeah. Great rest of the day.
Have a good day.
You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that one was, I think, more difficult because he wasn't he didn't necessarily feel very strongly about it. So he was at 50%, and it's obvious that something happened with him and stuck with him, but he wasn't sure exactly what it was. It was something that his teacher communicated over the course of the year. You know, and I think maybe he was tired. Maybe the classes, were heavy for him today. So I think he kind of, his brain wasn't very engaged.
Gotcha.
But I mean, overall, it was still an interesting conversation to have, to think about, what got him to the confidence level he's at. I really wish we could have kind of had more of a conversation about how do you measure
I
segregation.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. If we can't measure it, how do we know that there's more now?
Yeah. Yeah, is a really, interesting, because I guess in that instance I was thinking, I wonder what he's going to teach me.
Yeah.
That's where I was at in my brain.
Right.
And I don't feel like that happened. I don't feel like I really learned anything.
And I wonder how the folks that would be in the community that he would identify with in the 50s, how they would feel about the differences between, like, if they could see what life is like now, what they would say, if they would agree with him that it's more segregated now than it was in the 50s.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting question. What are some, like, elders in your community, where do they stand on the issue? And what do they think about it? And then, I didn't want to be presumptuous, but he was talking about his professor, and I was wondering, how old is she? Because if she's lived through it, then maybe it's something that she felt.
Yeah.
But if not, then maybe there's information that she has that, But, he had a pretty broad definition of segregation, so that also kind of made it difficult, because he was just talking about really any separation that's based on race, not even necessarily negative, which, it might be true, maybe it's true.
Depending on how you define it.
Yeah, depending on how you define it. And he was going across the whole world, so,
Gotcha.
but, I was like, well, World War II, I feel like in terms of measurement, World War II is going to be up there in terms of the amount of, if we count the amount of people segregated, if that's how you quantified it, then.
Right.
But I guess there are more people than ever before, so maybe there's more opportunity for segregation.
So the likelihood is higher than.
Yeah, maybe.
Interesting.
But this conversation is always really interesting to me because I grew up in a really diverse family. Hello.
Hello.
Did you have time for a conversation?
Yeah, what the hell? Why not?
Okay.
Sweet.